you guys doing? This is William Myers from Mantis Outdoors, and today we're going to do a video about different knife grinds. And the reason why we're doing this video is because this is a question that I get asked very frequently. What knife is for me? What knife should I get? What grind should I get? So hopefully this video is going to answer some of those questions. And down here we have some different examples of knives, and I'm just going to go ahead and take them all out of the sheath and kind of line them up here. Let's get rid of the sheaths. We don't need sheaths. Alright, so we got 4 different knives here. We pretty much have 4 different styles of grinds. This is the SCHF 42. It's the Brian Griffin, and we've already done a video on this, but this is what you would call a flat grind. Okay, this is more like a scalpel, real detailed work. It's going to get into tight places, do real fine work. So if you're doing things to where you want real fine notches, real fine feathered curls, you know, things like that, you're going to want something with a full flat grind. You know, it's something that's going to get the real fine detail stuff going. You know, this will also, depending on your techniques, do really big tasks as well. Just the thing with a full flat grind is all about pitch. So other than like a Scandi grind, you're going to have to pitch this knife in to dig in. You know, it's not that big of a deal. It's no big deal. That's the technique that you're going to have to use to get your bigger cuts and do your bigger tasks. It's all about the pressure that you're going to have to apply and the pitch of the knife. See, if I lay this flat against, I'm not going to do anything. But I got to find that grind to make my cut. See, laying the knife flat and then find my grind. Very fine detailed work. Some knives it's easier to find the grind than others. Now the more I pitch in, the deeper I'm going to go into the wood, and so I really have to use a lot of pressure to get my cuts. So that's a full flat grind. This is what I'd call more like a Scandi Vex. Okay, if you could see the angle of that grind. And this is a Pathfinder Phantom, a Jeff White Phantom. Not the hugest fan of this knife. I'm going to do a review on this knife. The only thing I can say about this knife is it's really not that comfortable to me. It's kind of a little bit top heavy. But it's not a horrible knife, and if you do get it, it'll serve you well. But the thing about this knife is with the Vex, with the Convex. So if you're picturing a Scandi, which this is a Scandi grind, you can see. So a Scandi grind would be basically like a triangle. A Scandi Vex is that triangle, which is a little bit more cheek. Like these are the cheeks to it. So you can see how a Scandi and then a Vex is going to push wood away. So batoning and things of that matter, it's gonna be a wood hog. They can be a little difficult. More difficult to find the grind for finer tasks and things like that, but for your just bust them up, get it done tasks, it's going to be fine. It's going to work a lot better for splitting, things like that. Some of the more meaty tasks that you need to do in the woods. So now on to more of a Saber grind, and this, other than a Scandi grind, this is one of my favorite grinds. And you can see basically it's almost like a hollow grind and a full flat grind mixed. It's kind of a combination grind. That's going to allow you to be able to work with this knife, get it in deep into wood and pry with a side pry. Different techniques. Splitting woods with one of these, it's very easy to do. Not as easy as with like a Vex of some kind. Any axe is going to have like a Convex, because you need those cheeks to push that wood apart. If you have like a straight pitch, it's just going to stick into the wood, and then you're going to have some problems. Not to say that you're not going to be able to finish the task, but it's not going to be like some kind of a Vex grind. So the Scandi grind is kind of the best of both worlds. It's not going to do exactly what a Scandi is going to do, but a Saber will get the fine work, the fine detail work done, and some of the hardcore tasks that you run into in the woods. So it's kind of the best combo of both. Kind of rob Peter to pay Paul. You're not going to be able to do this, but you can do that just as well. Alright, now on to one of my favorite grinds, and that is the grind that I more likely will suggest to you if you are a beginner, and that is a Scandi grind. For beginners, to master certain techniques and to get down certain tasks, the easiest tool to use is a Scandi grind. You know, feather sticks, stuff like that. Get a profile of that grind all the way down. Scandi grind is pretty much what I'm going to say you should use. And the reason why is finding the grind on a Scandi grind is incredibly simple. Like I said, one of the main reasons why I would suggest a Scandi grind to beginning students and people just now starting to work with knives in the woods and things like that is because it's incredibly easy to find the grind when you are trying to work. And what I mean by that is if I place this this knife flat on the wood and then I pitch it, there's a fine feeling. There's a defined feeling when I find that grind. When that grind touches the wood and grips in. And that's because that grind is so big, that Scandi grind is so big. I can find that grind and go straight down my wood. Again, just pitch it to where it meets the wood. And I can find that grind every single time. Incredibly easy to plane wood, to feather stick, to notch, to do every task that I need to do in the woods with a Scandi grind is incredibly easy. Now the thing about a Scandi grind is that they're wood hogs. If you find that grind and then pitch it too much, you're going to dive into the wood. Now I'm not getting a fine. I got to really apply pressure right now because I'm pitched in too far. So we can take that off. But like I said, if I just move that knife ever so, lay it flat and plane off my feather, I will get the desired effect. Now as far as like slicing, nothing's better than a Scandi grind in my mind. Like I said, they're wood hogs. Does a little bit better of a task than the Saber grind because it's just ease of use. You know, my technique with a Saber grind is different. But, you know, with a Saber grind, if you're new to it, you could, like I said, pitch it in too deep and not be able to slice. But if you know how to work a Saber grind, it's easy. But for the person not used to knives or just now getting into knives, Scandi grinds are just way easier to find that grind, slice off what I want. Now, like I said, with the Scandi Vex, those cheeks on the sides of the knife makes it a little difficult to find the edge. See, I'm still not even on the edge, barely. You know, I can lay this knife flat, turn it onto the grind. I'm still not into the wood because I'm not into the grind yet. I have to come up and pitch even more to get over the cheeks. And that's why I'm not a very huge fan of Scandi Vexes.
Another example of a Scandi Vex would be the Tops Bob.
Yeah, I don't like them. Not a huge fan. You know, people are going to say, well, what's the big deal? You can get over it. You can learn it. Yeah, absolutely, you can. I can make Scandi Vexes work perfectly fine for me. I've been doing this long enough. I mean, of course I can. Do I want to? No. I'd rather have the ease of use of a Saber grind or a Scandi grind. My preferred blade in the woods is one of two, either a Saber grind or a Scandi grind. You're going to get pretty much the best of both worlds, no matter which ones you choose. If I had to pick only one, I'd probably pick the Scandi, in my mind. If I could have a secondary, then that's what I would go with some kind of a Saber grind. And that's pretty much what I do on a daily basis. Either I'll pack that Saber grind GNS or the Scandi GNS. And And then I'll pack, you know, this main knife for the bigger tasks, and then a secondary smaller blade with something that's more conducive for smaller tasks, like a saber grind or a full flat grind. So those are what I would task for smaller, finer detailed, and the Scandi grind would be for the bigger, the meat and potatoes of the woods. All right, so you're probably asking yourself, why didn't I show a hollow grind? You know, personally, because I don't like them. I don't like them in the woods. You know, like Chris was saying, they chop well. Yeah, they chop well. I find that hollow grinds can be made so sharp that they stick. You know, they'll stick really, really bad. You know, pataning with them and this and that. Yeah, there is a case for them out there. I personally don't like them. If I'm gonna chop, I'm gonna chop with an axe. That's just me. Chris, he likes machetes, big knives, so chop with those. Me personally, I like axes. So that's the reason why you don't see a hollow ground knife here, because I don't own one.
The thing about hollow grinds, which makes them hard to choose, is a lot depends on how steep the grind is. Give you an example, I did a video once that never got posted. It was too long. I lost the footage for a while because I switched cameras. But I did a test between the Schrade SCHF9 and the SCHF9N. The 9 being a steep saber grind, the 9N being a very deep hollow grind. And I tested them side by side. And what I found was, it was one or the other. The hollow grind did a lot better fine work, but it was so steep it couldn't baton for anything. It would just get stuck, whereas the saber grind was just blowing things apart. But then Schrade came out with like the SCHF 36 and the 37, which are largely popular, and what they did was it was also a hollow grind, but it wasn't as deep of a hollow grind as the 9N. So then testing those were able to baton quite easily, and they still did a lot of the fine tasks. It's a preference thing, but it's a lot easier to know what a Scandi grind is going to perform like, or a saber grind is going to perform like, than it is a hollow grind, when every hollow grind is going to be different depending on the knife and the maker and how deep they go. Now, there's one thing that I consider a myth about hollow grinds that absolutely freaking drives me crazy, and it stems from internet parroting. That's what I call people that they believe something is true because they've heard it. So many people just keep repeating what they heard before, and it's not based on their actual first-hand experience. And that is, oh, I don't like hollow grind. Those are fragile. They're going to chip. I've never had a hollow grind chip. I've had a lot of different hollow grind knives. Probably the biggest hollow grind knife I had was a K-bar potbelly. And that is a huge hollow grind. If it chips, that's not really because of the grind. That is because of the steel and how well it was heat treated. So that's just something that bugs me, drives me nuts. I've seen no evidence of it in my time working with knives, which is years and years and years, way before I ever got into YouTube and stuff like that. So take things with a grain of salt whenever you're fishing for advice on the internet, because a lot of things just get repeated over and over, and it's not based on first-hand experience. And that whole hollow grinds are fragile thing is one of those things that I think really has nothing to back it up that I've seen. So something to consider. But again, as far as what grinds do we think are the most useful, hollow grinds are going to be low on the list. Now, like the Schrade SCH 36, 37, which are largely popular, they seem to have found the magic point on a hollow grind where it actually works. It doesn't hinder itself like real steep ones do. So sometimes they're okay, sometimes they're not. But you really got to be able to try them out to know which is which, because...
Well, if you're doing a lot of meat processing, you know, and very little wood carving, then a hollow grind could be an option.
Yeah.
You know, other than that,
They all do all these grinds, they do one task better than the other one does, and really just depends on what you want. But as far as just a general purpose bushcraft knife, like Will said, Scandi or Saber. Scandi's going to be the easiest. And a lot of people, one thing we might want to touch upon that I hear a lot about is sharpening a Scandi grind. Some people like to keep that zero, I don't even know how to really describe it, but where, well, you can just put it on a stone, lock it in flat, and do it. Other people put a secondary bevel on it, like with a work sharp. So yeah, you've got the grind.
You just hurt my soul.
Some people don't want it all scratched up, you know, like that. A lot of people confuse, and this comes up a lot when people talk about work sharp knife sharpeners. They confuse the grind with the actual edge. They're like, okay, well but I get asked all the time, can I sharpen a Scandi grind knife on a work sharp? Because a work sharp will put a convex edge on a knife. We're talking about this much is the edge, but the grind is this much. So it's, you call it a secondary bevel, micro bevel, whatever. It just depends on how you like to sharpen things and how you like your knives to be. There's lots of ways to do it.
We're definitely going to get into some stone videos and show how to whetstone knives and things like that.
I suck at stones, personally.
I'm the artist when it comes to stones.
I can do rods, ceramic, and I do most of my stuff. You know, people, oh, what if the shit hits the fan? You can't plug in your work sharp, or you can't plug out and work. I've had my knives, like my BK7s and stuff, out for a couple days at a time, and they were never worn down that much to where it couldn't wait till I got home to touch them up. You know, knives don't just instantly go dull when you go out and do a couple tasks with them.
Well, I've shown some field sharpening stuff too. You know, there's ways to sharpen in the field, but in my opinion, that's another thing that comes up when the conversation of knives come up. You know, what's the easiest to sharpen in the field? You know, things like that. As far as whetstone work does, a flat whetstone, a Scandi grind is going to be the easiest. It's just like how you work with wood. You know, if you're doing fine curls or you're doing whatever fine task you're doing, you're laying the blade flat, finding the edge, and planing. You know, that's the same thing with sharpening. You lay the blade flat, you pitch the blade until there's no shadow, some people say, or until it touches. It's a touchy-feely thing, and then you plane the stone, just like you're working with wood. So in my mind, yeah, a Scandi grind probably is the easiest to sharpen, easiest to polish. The hardest would be the Scandi Vex. You know, we kind of pick on the Scandi Vex a lot. You know, I really, they definitely have their uses, but you know, as far as beginners go, especially, I would stay away from them. Probably stick with the full flat, the Sabers, or the Scandis. Scandi being my preferred blade for my preferred blade for beginners. Other than that, sharpening a full flat or a Saber grind is going to be the same thing. It's just going to be a higher pitch, which for some reason when people are just now getting into sharpening, it's a little bit harder for them to find that perfect angle, that perfect pitch, because with a Scandi, you pretty much can't go wrong. It's not going to let you over pitch. If you're over pitching it, then you're bringing the knife up past it, and you just automatically feel that that's wrong. You know, it should be pitched flat and planed. It's pretty much no fuss, no muss, really easy to sharpen. The Sabers and the full flats are a little bit more of a not professional, but more experienced sharpening hand.
Now, one thing, I don't want to overload everybody with information. There's so many variables when it comes to knives. I generally don't personally care for full flat that much. I came to that conclusion using stuff like SE4s, SE6s. I just couldn't like them. I don't like the way they perform. I don't like the way they cut. I don't like them for batoning. You're getting all that full flat rubbing in the wood when you're batoning with a full flat. I didn't like them. So when we went to review this one, the Brian Griffin SCHF 42, I didn't like that it was a full flat grind. However, once we actually started testing the knife, what we found was the angle of this full flat grind actually made it perform. Where some full flat grind knives might have a very steep angle, this one's got a little bit more of a wedge to it, and it just helps split things better. Just, you know, the type of grind, the type of edge, the angle of the grind, all these things play into factors. And that's why it is so hard when people ask us all the time, which knife should I get? You know, what's the best knife? It's like, man, that's like, you know, what's the best car? You know, do you like these seats, or do you want the gas mileage, or do you want Bluetooth in it? I mean, you really got to go out and try them out. And that's why I would generally suggest starting out to get a couple knives from a budget brand like Schrade before you go investing the big dollars into really good stuff like LT Wrights and you know, a dark timber or something like that. So you have an idea on how to sharpen those knives, you have an idea on how they feel, what you like, and then once you have a better idea of what you like and you've got your skills down, and you know, like if you're using a work sharp or something like that, you know how to properly use that thing so you're not blunting the tip and stuff like that. Once you've got all those skills down and you've got those feeling, you know what you like, then go buy yourself a nice $200 knife. I mean, that's what I would suggest.
Okay, let me close it out. It's still running. Okay, so in closing, basically, if you're a beginner, you know, I say go out and get you a nice Mora, you know, $14 Mora. And it's going to be a Scandi grind more than likely. Go look at some of the charades, you know, this and that. Get you some budget blades, just like Chris was saying. Pick the edge that you prefer. Start out with a Mora though, $14. You can't beat it. You know, I mean, I still use them to this day. I hand them out to all my students when they show up for a class without a knife.
Especially the new ones.
Yeah, the new Moras they have coming out are some really good bush blades. Now you can get into some of the Moras that are more expensive, but that's for another video. They're very, very inexpensive. There are some very, very inexpensive Moras out there that are gonna. I mean, I still have some of my first Moras when I was younger. Even they're very long lasting. The charades for the full flats and for the Saber grinds, even some of the hollow grinds like Chris was talking about, even though that I'm not a fan of them, and I'm not really personally a fan of the Scandi, Scandi Vex, can't talk, but so, you know, go out there and see what you can find. My suggestions for new guys are the Scandi grinds and, you know, the Moras, obviously, because they're very cheap. Find what you like, and then go out there and get you a nice knife. And just have fun in the woods, guys. That's what the important part is. Don't make it so hard. You know, don't make it such a dubious task to pick out a knife. You know, obviously you want to get the right knife for you, and you want to get one that's gonna last you forever. That's what everybody wants. You know, they want that one knife that's gonna last them forever. That's a pretty tall order. You know, go out there and get you a couple cheap knives. See what kind of grinds you like, what kind of handle you like, then shop around for some of the other ones. Alright guys, well, it's been William Myers, Mantis Outdoors. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, there's some more of my previous videos that are playing in the screens to my left right now. There's also a subscribe button over there. If you haven't done so, I appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel. To stay up to date with what I'm doing with my school and the YouTube channel, stay posted on the videos that are going to be uploaded. You can go to www.facebook.com/Mantis Outdoors, or you can go to www.mantisoutdoorsllc.com. Liking my videos helps me and my channel out a lot. I appreciate all your views, comments, and support, and hopefully we'll see you out in the woods.